Southern strategies popularized by Richard Nixon and Barry Goldwater. The Southern strategy, for those who do not know, was basically...
I think to them, a lot of them, it was like, you stick to your own, we'll stick to ours. But nope, this is America, we're all the same. Doesn't matter which color his skin is, which often isn't white. A lot more than it's white these days.
Using the fear of black anything to rile up voters and get them to vote and empower Democrats who would eventually become modern-day Republicans.
Be right back, gotta pee.
Bush and Dukakis on crime. Bush supports the death penalty for first-degree murderers. Dukakis not only opposes the death penalty, he allowed first-degree murderers to have weekend passes from prison. One was Willie Horton, who murdered a boy in a robbery, stabbing him 19 times. Despite a life sentence, Horton received 10 weekend passes from prison. Horton fled, kidnapped a young couple, stabbing the man and repeatedly raping his girlfriend. Weekend prison passes. Dukakis on crime.
People often think the culture wars that we're dealing with online all the time today are new, but they're really not. There's always been racial and gender divides that have always bled into or often stemmed from political divides. And they almost always are between a dominant group fighting to keep a subordinate group from making progress. It's often seen as deserving versus undeserving, but what it really is meant to be is white versus black or rich versus poor. That said, in this time period, it wasn't hard to entrench a negative public sentiment toward inner city urban areas as Americans witnessed urban decay that had never been seen before, a result of generations of disinvestment and economic and social exploitation of black and brown people in places like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Baltimore, etc. And this image of black and brown people tearing each other apart in the inner cities was the status quo of the time for that entire time. But a change of sorts came in the early 90s when Bill Clinton became the first Democratic president in 12 years and one of only 2 Democrats to be the president in almost a 40-year period. And this happened because Clinton led a rightward shift in Democratic policies, promising to address crime and cult welfare. And with some help from third-party spoiler Ross Perot, Clinton beat incumbent George Bush Sr. to become president in 1992.
Congratulations.
Thank God.
2
But we
years
would have had
later,
9/11 way
his
earlier.
promise to address crime was culminated in
Way
the
earlier.
1994 crime bill, guided by his wife and future senator / presidential candidate Hillary Clinton,
A good thing,
and
too.
current president and former vice president Joe Biden.
It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother out.
Hey, it's Joe Biden from 30 years ago. Man, I wish we had him right now.
Head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask what made them do this. They must be taken off the street.
The crime bill
Yep.
has been talked about a ton in the last decade or so as the disastrous results of it have now really become impossible not to notice. Policymakers at that time leaned into tough on crime ideology as opposed to the more obvious and also well-known research around social and community development.
Reform.
The bill made little to no investment into the poor by design urban centers of America that I spoke about earlier. Instead of investment in those cities, millions were spent on funding the police,
was I killed?
expanding federal
must have
prisons,
been.
and fighting
Raided?
the war on drugs.
Yeah,
Policies were
probably
instituted
raided.
for mandatory minimum
okay.
sentences, 3-strike rules, and countless other new reasons to put
Oh, well.
predominantly poor
There was
people
nothing in
and
there, not even any
disproportionately black
sulfur.
people
Fucking
in prison.
idiot.
One of the most notable elements being the violent offender incarceration and truth in sentencing.
Got a raid on a 2-pop fucking piece of fucking shit. Ooh, what was that? Oh my gosh. That's what? Okay. What happened to my server? Pieces of shit got a hold of it. Whatever. I spent too much time on that base. I'm learning not to spend any time on the base because pieces of shit, they actually exist. We haven't flushed them, you know? They're still in the toilet. Pieces of shit. Congratulations on blowing 8,000 sulfur for 0 profit. and one gun. Only born fucking losers do stupid ass, Russ asshole, cocksucking loser bullshit like that. Only confirmed born losers act like that. So congratulations. So here's me building same thing. Lost an hour. Oh well. Yeah. How many doors did you blow for 0 profit? As usual? Fucking moron. Piece of shit moron. It's like you despair over the low IQ. You're like, oh man, you have got to be the dumbest piece of shit in the history of Rust. Walk all over scrubs like you all day. You know? Fucking born loser hitting an outpost base on a 2-pop. Fucking stupid shithead. Waste of fucking skin. Waste of time. Complete waste of even their mother's time. Who the fuck acts like that? Pieces of worthless shit. That's who. Nobody else in Rust acts like that. Only you. Well, let's go rebuild in 5 minutes, you know. Kill by entity. Fun to get like kind of a spot over there, fairly hidden. What the fuck is that? Let's go see. I'm safe, right? How's this going? Good. Nice. Piece of shit born losers. Doing piece of shit born loser things. Watching piece of shit born losers waste hours of their time makes me sick. For 10 minutes of my time, it makes no sense. Piece of shit born losers on a 2-pop server. Piece of shit born loser cheaters who don't exist. Oh, it's mushy, huh? Oh, never mind. Mushy's fine. It was mushy? I guess that's kind of an accident, I guess. Yeah. Fine by me. Never mind. Mushy's fine. Yeah, that's good. Fine by me. Actually, never mind. I feel good. Mushy's fine. I just assumed it was somebody else, but... I mean, Mushy's good. Wow. Oh. Mushy's good. I had nothing in there. Poor guy only got a gun. I feel bad. Now I feel bad for being poor when he robbed me. See? That's the difference. As long as they're fucking legit, I don't give like a shit who they are. I don't care. Give a shit what they do. Like, good on him. Good on his raid, you know? Good shit, you know? I didn't mean to be so negative about it. I thought it was the cocksucker again. But no. Turned out to just be a random on the server. It's good. He's been on the server as long as I have, so that's his right to raid here if he wants. I don't care about that. What else? Yeah, shit, man, I don't care about this. They can rob me if they need to. I frankly really don't care. Like, I mean, that's not why I'm here. I built big because I wanted to build big. I've been messing with, like, forcing him to pop through like 8 doors like that. He was probably so pissed. He got in there and he was like, Jesus Christ, I blew like 30 fucking, like 300 fucking explosive rounds or whatever, or, you know, 30 satchels, and I got nothing at all. And it teaches you, like, leave me alone. I mean, that guy, he lost. He lost a lot of time. There was nothing in there. There was a single gun, 0 sulfur, and actually kind of feel bad. Like, I wish they could just leave it alone. I don't know why you need a raid on a dead server. But it's your server. You can do as you please. That guy, he lives here. He's on all the time. Fine by me. I thought it was the idiot. There's that. Good. Okay, we have a start, and I can be inside where I'm safe and starve to death or whatever. I'm 5 claws short of a bag, and that's a problem. And I suppose I need like a... I'll just keep wood doors. Maybe they'll leave me alone if I have wood doors. I don't know. Or like, yeah, like a wood door anyways. Yeah, make me like that, and like a lock. Yeah. And no, I don't want to do that yet. Gotta go find grass in the, or I'm sorry, marijuana in the meadow. Just looking around for anything that kind of stands out. Little bump of marijuana somewhere in sight anyways. But I don't see it, so I'm just gonna move forward and begin my farming. It's kind of a shitty day, and it's midday. There's the upkeep for a long, long time. The real reason I keep getting raided is I build big so I can stuff the base with stuff. But really, you don't need that. None of the loot is really that worth it, really. I need cloth, and I don't know where I'm gonna get it. I guess I'll have to like run the, yeah, the pylon. I think pylons. Cause or well, there's probably a. I wonder who else is on the server with me. Let me go look. Okay, so how's this? Yep, gotta keep mining. Oh. I've made so much money. Money. I've got more than you. I've got so much MMO money. Money. I've got more than you. I've got so much MM money. Give me the cloth. 28. Give me more. I have a lot of stone, enough for the rest of the wipe. I never need to hit a stone node again. Okay. We fly. And there should be loot on this one. Oh man, can I find my base again? I think this is where I built. Yeah, like right there. Yeah, right there. Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's still looted. Yeah. Oh. Cloth? Come on, cloth. Come on, cloth. Yeah, I got it. Gotta make a bag. Yeah, my job here is done. I paid the upkeep and collected enough to make a bag down and a base. I'll even put light in there, I think. Come on, refunds. So... put it all in there. Yep. And we're going to put a bag down like right there. Stupid mushy raiding my base. Now it feels good. Now that I know that the person is legit, I don't care. I don't care what happened. Wait, why did I make this? I shouldn't have made this. I should have made this. Make me a bigger one, yeah. Okay, it's time to play some WoW.
Incentive grant program, which gave out $12.5 billion in grant money, not for education, healthcare, housing, or community investment, but for building prisons to house all the newly incarcerated. And it worked in a multitude of ways. It's fair to say that the crime bill reduced crime, although it's also fair to say that crime was reducing beforehand.
And the thing that is always striking to me, and I think really underplayed in our national discourse over crime, is that we don't really understand it. If you go into the 80s and the 90s, you see crime goes way, way up in the 70s, way, way up in all kinds of different jurisdictions, more or less all at the same time. And then it begins going way, way down in all kinds of different places all at the same time. So you have stories that people know, like there's New York with Rudy Giuliani and broken windows policing and stop and frisk. But it also goes down in all these places that didn't do what New York City did. It's so widespread, both the rise and the fall, that you end up having researchers trying to think of even broader explanations, like whether or not lead and the amount of lead in young kids' bloodstream and thus the effect on their executive function when they got older, maybe that's the causal mechanism.
And it's definitely more fair to say that the bill greatly increased mass incarceration, which had also been spiking since the Reagan era. Now, since the 2010s, statistically, incarceration has been lessening as people realizing the problems of this bill have started to make changes to undermine its damages. But understand, the damage had already been done. I bring all of this up because we often look at the failure of this bill as something that happened to the black community from white political forces. And while this is overall true, it's not a useful or fair critique of what actually happened. A more accurate critique requires us to engage with the fact that a lot of black people, many who were directly suffering under an epidemic of crime and drugs, were on board with this bill from day one.
Let me start out with this. I am ashamed of my vote. I sincerely apologize to my God, I apologize to my community, to my family. That was the worst vote, as I look back over the years, that I've taken since I've been in the Congress.
And that brings me back to the question of the first section. Why were black people so willing to see carceral punishment as a fix to societal problems of crime? The 1994 crime bill was endorsed by the Congressional Black Caucus, and it was supported by black Democratic leaders like the only black senator at the time, Cara Mosley Braun.
I could cite statistics such as these regarding the level of violent crime in our society for the rest of this evening, but the numbers only serve to illustrate what we already know. I believe that the federal government must act to help take back our streets, to ensure that every man, woman, and child in this country feels safe in their communities, in their schools, and in their homes. And that is why it is imperative that Congress send this bill to the president as soon
or the current so-called kingmaker, Jim Clyburn.
But people say that, it at least perpetuated the idea that more people should be in prison. Do you ever think about that your support for this bill may have perpetuated mass incarceration as we see it now?
Yeah, I think about that. I just don't think that's true.
And this is not to say that other black Democrats like the late great John Lewis or Maxine Waters didn't oppose the bill as a whole.
We know the best way of effectively reducing crime lies in addressing the root causes of crime.
Poverty.
Fortunately, there is no issue we face where the difference between responsible governing...
Yep, where there's just no instance where the rich people don't steal, the rich white people don't steal all the money. So when they don't steal all the money, we won't have poverty. As long as rich white people steal all the money, we're going to have poverty and ghettos and problems and crime and black on black crime and all this other stuff. And so, as long as we stop stealing the money and make sure that everybody in the country is taken care of, and just in general stop being like kind of rich assholes, probably do a lot better.
...is so great. In the politics of crime...
And I say this dumbing it down. I'm trying to dumb myself down.
Are total opposites. The best politics of crime involves the emotional appeal. Mandatory minimum sentences, life without parole, no rehabilitation, more death penalty provisions, and put them to death quicker by cutting out the appeals. That strategy appeals to emotion and helps politicians get
Wow,
elected,
Shadow Priest looks so
but it does
OP.
nothing to reduce crime in the streets.
But they were still responding to pressure from regular black people in the crosshairs of this problems to do something, anything about the crime in these communities. There were plenty of black people asking for community investment and deterrence programs and fighting against three-strike rules and mandatory minimums. But overall, a lot of black folks seem to think that the police would easily be able to tell the good black folks from the bad, and that the deserving would benefit and that the undeserving would suffer.
Question of additional police officers. If we hired the right police officers and if they did the right thing, would that have an impact on the crime rate?
I doubt it. As I said before, even if you hire the right police officers and they're doing the right thing all the time, what are you going to do with them? They're going to be walking all over top of each other. In this country, I think we're down. Those numbers are even greater. When there was a time 20 years ago when my department had 8,500 police officers. We're now down to 6,200 police officers. The crime rate was higher then than it is now. And those bear the national statistics. So it's not the number of police officers that you have, it's the job that they perform.
Who remembers a few years ago the awful social media trend of black parents embarrassing their children on Facebook by cutting their hair in ridiculous ways and sending them to school and videotaping the whole thing, or showing up to the school to berate and beat them in front of the world? Who has joked about experiences getting whipped by parents and grandparents? I think it's impossible to deny that the concept of carcerality is low-key a little deep in black culture. And it may start out as, older black folks telling kids to pull their pants up, but it lends itself to a multitude of black people endorsing a corrupt prison system, maybe to prove that they are one of the good ones. I worked with parents and troubled youth a lot over the course of my pre-YouTube career, and one thing that you'll always hear from a parent whose kid is in trouble is how they did everything they were supposed to do to keep their child out of trouble. In fact, they sometimes over-present these ideas, the fact that they were whipping their child and taking away their child's stuff and embarrassing their child, and you kind of want to tell them, maybe not in the moment, that that's probably part of the problem.
You're gonna lose your child's trust, possibly. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, I remember when I woke up with police surrounding my bed, bro. Like, that, you know what I mean? My grandma did a lot of effed up stuff after that, too, so it just got worse. But, like, that had, like, shattered trust from that point. And then I think not far after is when I started standing up and not letting her beat me anymore. I was like, no, you ain't gonna beat me anymore. I'm good. Like, because even though she beat me my whole life, I still had trust and faith in her till that moment.
Very oftentimes when my clients talk to me, I always try to tell people, when I meet my...
As promised, here is the reward that you deserve.
I think I go into there now? No, I'm close, but I think it's actually a new plague, yeah. I think all the rest of that's a little bit more advanced for me, yeah. And I think it's Murlocs now. I think I'm supposed to...
my client, this is not the first system to fail. You know what I mean? By virtue of me as a public defender representing them, which is who the majority is represented by in the criminal system, you are literally impoverished. You're disenfranchised in some way. You've already experienced some kind of institutional letdown, and I've never been that. I've never walked through this. Like, all of those things are a culmination of how you end up to be, how you end up in your choices, how all those things. Like, imagine in your teenage years, I am about to be 30 next month. The things, the anxieties, the depressions, whatever issues that I had as a teenage are the things that have grown, manifested, worked through, whatever, in all this time. So imagine your teen years, your first brush with depression, someone dies, and that somehow becomes your mother criminalizes you. Where does that trickle, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so by the time you do something that you commit some crime that people won't consider a crime of poverty or whatever, because they don't think of the chain. They don't think of the entire chain and how all these things...
And that's
how all these things came to be.
Is to dig through the tough reality that while we suffer under these systems, we are still very deeply invested in them, down to how we raise our children. And I want to blame it on the legacy of our treatment during and post-slavery. I want to blame it on internalized anti-blackness. I'm sure there's several good books that explain exactly how this stems out from that behavior for whatever reason. But if we are going to be serious about addressing the problem, we have to be serious about divesting from it. We have to stand against the system and the belief that putting people, especially our people, in prisons when they get in trouble and police custody will help us long term or even in the short term. Now, this isn't easy because we don't live in a society where police in prisons aren't necessary. I won't tell you to never call the police or never use the system to seek justice or restitution when you have to, but I ask you to consider when and how you can avoid involving these systems, and under what circumstances does the involvement in this system really have a chance to even be meaningful. Because in most cases, they don't. So you need to be mindful of how these systems really work versus how they pretend to work.
That's why it confuses me why we ever needed anything else to describe the problem or the solution. Like, I know FD and them be using all them big words and getting extra deep in these topics and whatnot, but sometimes the shit ain't that deep. Sometimes it's real simple. You start contextualizing and debating, and next thing you know, you lost the whole plot of what we're talking about. Not only have you taken the claws out and dulled the teeth of a lion, you've replaced the lion with a house cat that makes everyone comfortable. That's why for me it's always been real simple. Fuck the police. We don't need to clean it up. We don't need to change it. We don't need to switch it up so that it's a little more palatable. And I guarantee they're not going to say that if they don't mean it.
Just take it easy. You stumbled onto something here. Maybe we can all benefit from this slight misunderstanding. Now let's go someplace quiet so we can talk this over.
No. I love that movie, They Live.
So you bastards die just like we do.
The first myth that needs to be dispelled is what the police, and by extension our criminal justice system, is actually here for. The motto, protect and serve, is ubiquitously known as a police creed, but it's not real. Or moreover, it's not written in any police bylaws that they must protect and serve you, the everyday normal citizen. I can cherry pick countless examples of police literally not protecting and serving people when they most need them. I could talk about the police in the Uvalde shooting from a couple of years ago, where they stood idly while a spree shooter murdered 19 children and 2 teachers. Or I could talk about the famous case in New York where police stood behind a door watching a man being attacked with a knife and waited until he and another private citizen subdued the attacker before intervening. Or the landmark child abuse case in 1989, which led to a Supreme Court ruling that says that the police do not have to protect you from harm. A ruling that was upheld again in 2005 after a child murder case. Feel free to look this up. Protect and serve isn't real. The police don't have to protect you from harm unless you're a rich land or property owner, probably. Protection of land and property is probably the true origin of policing as we know. Yep. They were slave catchers protecting
the homeless are a question for only one reason. Our president's raises the question, who owns the land?
Property of slave owners in the South or private businesses in the North. But at least for a time, these entities were often privately funded by the rich who, ironically,
any land should be
often hired criminals and thugs and miscreants as their police to secure their property. It's not until 1838 when we get our first ever publicly funded police force.
So my issue with it is, as an American, if I'm in dire straits and I'm homeless, I should be able to roam this land freely, sleep in places where there's no owner that cares that I'm there, like, you know, and move on with my life, farm the land, hunt for food, try to find water, that kind of stuff. It's the same old bit. The only reason that there's a homeless problem now is because our president raises the question, who owns the land, and that land must be custodianed and looked after and zoned and middlemanned and, you know, and codified and part and parceled, and all of it is essential. And now we don't have that freedom. Ooh, I need that pig. We don't have that freedom to be free in your own country and try to dig yourself up out of poverty or any of that. We don't really have that freedom. We have a bunch of middlemen telling you that you can't live on that land because the bank owns it. Can't be there, can't subside, can't be a poor person on that land because the bank owns it, and you can't be there, and you can't get better, you can't, you can't be in the city, you can't be on the sidewalk, you can't be anywhere because somebody owns that land who doesn't want you there. And if you owned that land, you wouldn't want homeless people there either. So it's sort of hard. It's a hard system about capitalism a little bit. It's like a harder thing. It's a little hard. I can hear him, but I can't see him. There he is. Yeah, I mean, that's not bad. Yeah, it's a step in the right direction. It's good.
Business owners convinced the local municipality to take over the cost of their, at the time, private protection of their property as a public good. And suddenly, we have taxpayer-funded policing as we know. However, for a long time, the sentiment of fuck the police was much more popular than you might think. For longer than not, in fact, the police were looked at by the general public as nuisances, losers, and snitches, or worse yet, themselves another gang of thugs who just happen to serve the economic or political elite.
I know the police cause you trouble. They cause trouble everywhere. But when you die and go to heaven, you'll find no policeman there.
Yup.
After 60-plus years of publicly funded police and
Not in
constant
heaven,
complaints
no.
from citizens, the Lexile Committee in New York did the first major probe of police activity in the United States. And after 10,000 pages of testimony from over 700 witnesses, the commission came to the following conclusions.
It appears, therefore, that the police formed a separate and highly privileged class, armed with the authority and the machinery for oppression and punishment, but practically freed themselves from the operation of the criminal law. Many of the members of the force, and even superior officers, have abused the resources of physical power which have been provided for them, and their use only in the cases of necessity in the making of arrests and the restraint of disorder, to gratify personal spite and brutal instincts, and to reduce their victims to a condition of servility. This condition has grown to such an extent that even in the eyes of our foreign-born residents, our institutions have been degraded, and those who have fled from oppression abroad have come here to be doubly oppressed in a professedly free and liberal country. The harm thus done by engendering bitterness and hatred in the minds of multitudes of those people who look upon the police as the highest expression of governmental power.
This sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? It's basically what most black people and pretty much every left-leaning person in earshot has been saying about the police for at least the last 10 years and really long. So you might be wondering, how did we go from that to where we are now? Why are the police so beloved and trusted now? It's not like they've gotten any better. Why, when we constantly see the abject failure of police, do people look at those instances of failure as anomalies and not an indication of the reality of police? The answer to this is multifaceted. There's an inherent investment in the authority that permeates American society. A lot of the support for police, especially now, is essentially just a tacit endorsement of racism and anti-blackness. That's why you have people yelling all lives matter to people saying Black Lives Matter, because you know exactly what they're trying to say. The thin blue line flag saw a huge surge in popularity when black people started marching against police brutality. I don't think that's a coincidence. But what I really want to engage in with most is a concept called propaganda, which brings us to an old TV show called Dragnet.
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
If you look at like early 1900s films or like the 1910s, you run into stuff like the Keystone Cops, Charlie Chaplin. These are people, Buster Keaton, these are people who are not exactly liking the police. And that stuff's going on for a while. And then when they move to television, it's like one of the first big TV shows in the 50s, Jack Webb decides, I'm gonna work with the police. I'm gonna work with the LAPD. I'm gonna give them something that is very, quote unquote, authentic.
The story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Authenticity is the calling card of cop shows and of propaganda, is this idea that this is the real story, these are real cases.
These are their stories.
Webb
These are
gets
the
all
stories.
of this equipment from the police. He gets to look at real case files. He gets to do all this stuff for free. So all of that becomes way cheaper and thus more profitable. And all he's got to do, all Jack Webb's got to do, is send every script to the LAPD for censorship and approval.
Before Dragnet, the depiction of police in the media mostly aligned with what the left side reported had to say. Charlie Chaplin, the Keystone Cops, even Bugs Bunny cartoons show a negative public sentiment toward the police. Dragnet changed that. Dragnet began a legacy of propaganda where people's understanding of policing stopped being what was actually happening in the streets and started being what we see on TV right now. And since most people don't regularly interact with the police, as we said earlier, and when they do, it's often a mostly positive experience, the reality of what police are to those who interact with them the most, aka the poor, is pretty much not understood. And for over half a century, we've been inundated with propaganda, from the cop shows of the 60s and 70s to the action cops of the 80s and 90s to the procedural dramas of the 2000s and beyond. And now even the neo-propaganda of Marvel and Disney, where the heroes are still cops, but they also have superpowers and they make funny jokes.
Hello, girl, kick your ass.
Cop shows contribute to the myth of the thin blue line, which is that aforementioned idea that police are the only protection good law-abiding citizens have from a world of depraved criminals who want nothing but to harm.
Joe Friday is the main character, and he is just perfect. Like, he never shoots his gun. When he does, it's one shot. He never misses. He's very clinical. He's very cold. He's very calm.
I took the money from people who had it and gave it to those who didn't. What do you think, Sergeant?
What's that?
Was I wrong?
He never gets emotional. He always gets the right guy. He's just perfect. You know, he's like the ideal of what you would want in a detective. Not realistic at all, obviously, and bought and paid for by the LAPD. And then there's also like a lot of thin blue line stuff going on. So they'll talk about how there's crime right around. There's crime every day. It's threatening our city, but good thing we have Mr. Joe Friday. These are real stories. We've changed the names to protect the innocent, but this is what's going on, guys. Yeah, LAPD's got you.
Shows like Cops used to put that reality on in full display. Shows like Law and Order gave us dramatic, heinous examples of the worst things that could happen, but justice is served by the end of the show. And shows like The Wire and We Own the Night present a critical eye toward policing that still eventually reinforces the thin blue line myth. And even outside of that frame, we have shows like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Reno 911 that make cops funny.
Tell me why.
Ain't nothing but a heartache.
Tell me why.
And shows like Paw Patrol that hide the gross reality of what police dogs tend to do in real life and their historical connection to slavery.
It is a show that is very, like, pro-police, obviously. Like, the main character is a cop dog. His name is Chase. That's kind of crazy. Let's not leave that unsaid. They keep giving him, like, gadgets. Like, he's got, like, a drone. He's got, like, spy gear. He's got all this other stuff. There's, like, mass surveillance. They know where everything is all the time. Research that I did for the Paw Patrol video, I've done a lot of research on cop stuff, police brutality. That is some of the most horrific shit I've ever read. There were like jugulars broken, people lost their testicles, like just crazy golf-sized bites being taken out of people's legs for often, like, not a real, like, just in the arrest. Like, they're not convicted, there's nothing going on here, like, they might not even be guilty of anything.
More blades to strike at our enemies when they least expect it. Adventurer, not quite what I was expecting, considering Karkat himself has taken an interest to you.
All of these shows and movies promote an image of policing and crime that just isn't real and doesn't even make sense most of the time. However, with these images everywhere, with people engaging with the police through TV more than real life, the fiction becomes reality. And we think this is how policing works, and it definitely is not. As I said earlier, the police don't solve many crimes, and they don't have a legal obligation to protect people. And research has consistently found that more police and the amount of police have little to no effect on crime. There is research that indicates that focused deterrent strategies, aka putting more police in high crime neighborhoods, has some effect on reducing crime. But then we have to engage with the whole other body of research that shows the consequence of over-policing poor communities, aka rises in police brutality, the prison population, community disinvestment, you know, the whole problem of the '94 crime bill. I see multiple cop cars whenever I leave my house, and I don't feel any safer. Further, a fraction of the money being spent to over-police high-crime areas could be better used to actually funnel resources into those areas with far greater social benefit at a cheaper price. But the reality is these systems aren't meant to benefit society, they're meant to control it. And the thing is, this is not some like left-wing nonsense, this is not some critical theory extrapolation. This is well understood, constantly reproduced research. The Department of Justice just released a report on the Minneapolis Police Department where George Floyd and many other innocent unarmed people have been murdered, and it showed a clear pattern of repeated abuses and violations that they've known about for decades. But that's not unique. Pretty much anywhere where the DOJ or anyone has investigated the police, they found the exact same things: rampant abuses of power, ingrained racism, and a lack of accountability. And again, this isn't something we're subtly aware of. 60 plus years of sociological and criminological research on crime has told us over and over that the greatest predictor of crime is poverty and community dysfunction. And thus, the best way to reduce crime is to increase the quality of life in high crime areas.
Down in Detroit, Michigan. Pillage, looting, murder, and arson have nothing to do with civil rights.
John. Mr. President. How are you? Fine, thank you, sir. John, you know what I think of you, don't you? I certainly do, Mr. President, vice versa. I've got to ask you now to act like the good American I believe you to be. I'm going to seriously consider appointing a small group of 7 or 9 tonight to look into the cause of these disorders. I want nothing but competence, I want nothing but compassion, and I want nothing but patriotism. The commission will investigate the origins of the disorders in our cities. It will make recommendations to me, to the Congress, to the state governors, to the mayors, for measures to prevent or contain such disasters.
The President's Advisory Commission on Civil Disorder warned that race hatred threatened to tear this country apart.
What white Americans have never fully understood, but what could never forget, is that white society is deeply impacted in the ghetto. White institutions created it. White institutions maintain it. And white society condones it.
One of the things that they dispense with, early, is the idea that you just need to reform police. And, they said, like, look, no, this is about housing, this is about education, this is about healthcare, this is about media, this is about employment and unemployment, all of the institutions that really relate to life outcomes. And when they kind of walk through the data of the systemic differentiation between how those institutions interacted with black people and how they interacted with white people, or how they interacted with non-white people, they just came to this holistic understanding, of the problem. And they were saying, well, you can't really talk about policing without also talking about unemployment. And you can't talk about unemployment without talking about education. You can't talk about education without talking about housing.
Among the ingredients of this mixture are pervasive discrimination and segregation in employment, education, housing, which have resulted in the continuing exclusion of a great number from the benefit of economic progress. Black in-migration and white exodus, which have produced the massive and growing concentrations of impoverished in our major cities, creating a growing crisis of deteriorating facilities and services and unmet human needs.
It's the same things we've been saying forever. They found it way back in 1968. The findings were so scathing to the lack of real effort by the government to heal the wounds of racism that the report had to leak out of the relatively progressive Lyndon B. Johnson administration. They didn't want the truth to come out about their own findings. The Kerner Commission report is not new science. You can go to any ghetto in the world, in the entire world, South America, South Africa, South Asia, Eastern Europe. You'll find people in dire straits ripping each other apart for the sake of survival. And in every situation, the same solutions are prescribed: social support, community investment, healthcare, education. Yet, whether it's Joe Biden in 1994 or Joe Biden in 2020, you still see our government officials peddling the lie that we need a better trained and better funded police force to address crime, and somehow the failures of policing.
I know most cops and their families are good, decent, honorable people, the vast majority. We have to do better. Give law enforcement the real training they need. Hold them to higher standards. Help them succeed in keeping us safe.
The fallacy of the existence of modern policing is well documented. There will be some books in the description, but just in the last month or so since this video was in production, other big YouTubers like Big Joel, Some More News, Philosophy Tube have made videos detailing lots of new evidence as to why policing is bad. And Skip Intro has a whole series on propaganda that is well worth your time. I appreciate them because the reality is that black people have been telling this same fucking story to the whole country for several generations now, and it's fallen on deaf ears. It's been in our music, it's been in our politics, it's even been
not
in
just
our
black culture,
TV shows in the 90s.
all of our cultures.
But the thing is, officer, this isn't my car.
Get out of the car, Carl. What? He's going to tell us to get out of the car.
You watch too much TV, Will.
Get out of the car.
Which is yet another YouTube video you can watch. Sadly, some folks don't take it seriously until a white person tells it to them. So for more specific examples of this, you can check that out or other stuff in the description. Let's move on to the actual prison part of this equation. It's 2010, and I'm in my 4th year teaching, and I'm finally starting to figure out how to survive as a teacher in a tough environment. One of the things I've learned is that you have to appreciate your wins, and one of my wins came in the form of Ben. Ben was the smartest kid I'd ever teach, and he had a slick and snarky sense of humor that made him a pleasure to be around, but also made him a little bit of a slacker, which ended up having him have to retake 10th grade level English as a senior with me. Ben was so smart, though, that I really couldn't bring myself to make him do sophomore work that was so beneath him. To me, it was more valuable, both to him and me, to do some directed reading. So I gave him Brave New World and The Things They Carried and the autobiography of Malcolm X, stuff that I thought would be challenging for him to learn and fun to talk about with what I low-key saw as a fellow future intellectual. I remember one day he got his SATs back and he said he scored in the 80th percentile and that he was thinking about going to school in Florida, where he was originally from. And I was excited for him because Ben was,
it's good to use your brain.
I know that's not necessarily the most kosher sentiment to have, but when you're teaching in these types of environments, you tend to latch on to kids.
You look for the roses that grow from the concrete. That's Tupac Shakur.
That you can do something for, as opposed to the just like larger population of kids.
I've always been a community activist. Always.
Like, literally a week after.
I left the community now, but I was until I left. I was somebody that you would come to if you were in trouble, somebody that you come to if you need to be bailed out of jail, somebody to come to if you have a problem or if somebody's trying to hurt you, somebody to come to if you need help moving, somebody that, you know, like, I left that community now because their judgment when I did drugs was unacceptable and I judged them. But until then, we were tight like peas and carrots, and I did whatever, was necessary for my crew, my family, my people, even my city. But, yep. And so it's good. It's good to see sometimes in the community people who are really fucking smart.
That Ben had been arrested for armed robbery. They showed me his mugshot online, and I couldn't believe my eye.
Yeah. Oh, I can believe it. Oh, I can believe it. I can believe it. Wasn't a surprise to me.
And I just
we do what we have to. You know what I'm saying? We do what we have to.
Stared at this mugshot for what felt like hours, but what had to only be 10 minutes because it was homeroom.
Yeah.
And I started Googling about like the laws in Georgia, which told me that armed robbery had a mandatory minimum of 10 years. And Ben was only 17, which meant he spent most of his 20s, if not all of them, behind bars. I remember sitting at my desk for a while, just kind of like in this stupor. And then my next class came in, and it was time to teach.
Of Lord
and
the Death
then I
Stalker's
remember
grow.
Getting up
More blades to strike at our
slicing
enemies
dust,
when they
yeah.
least
an empty
expect it.
desk in the front of the classroom and picking it up and throwing it as hard as I could at a nearby window.
Watch your back.
Comedically, unbeknownst to me, the window was made of like bulletproof glass or some type of reinforced glass, and the desk just kind of bounced off anticlimactically and landed on the floor in a thud.
Yep.
And I stepped outside to collect.
Yeah, like that moment in LA Confidential. It happens to us. Sometimes we're like, God damn it, I'm so fucking angry. I want to fucking put this fucking chair through this window. You know, you get so angry sometimes. You're like, what the fuck? Why was this like this, you know?
How I may have just lost my job.
Yeah.
Shout out to my assistant principal of that time. You know who you are.
No, we all go through some things sometimes. I lost a kid. You know what I'm saying? I lost a kid. I went through something when I lost my friend. Well, I can say his name now. He's passed. My friend Alan. I went through something when I lost my friend Alan. And my friend Jay. Well, Jan. I can say Jan's name now. Losing Alan and losing Jan fucked me up pretty bad. I gotta say, my friend M, I've never seen a body or heard a eulogy for her, but I'm fairly sure she's dead. She hasn't used a social platform in 7 years, and she had like 10,000 followers. She's dead. I'm fairly sure. Overdose. Her sister hadn't seen her in a long time. Like, I don't know what's going on with that. Let's just pray she's alive. I think she's dead. She's definitely brain fried. She's not a human being really anymore. She's brain fried. She did too much heroin. When you talk to her, it's like talking to like a child, 5-year-old child, maybe. And she was like a wife to me for a long time.
With the sanction of Lord Varamathras, the Death Stalker.
We looked out for each other.
More blades to strike at our enemies when they least expect it.
She was like my sister, my wife, my girlfriend, everything. Fucking crazy. She was like my partner. I miss her so bad. I think about her all the time. Comes up in music a lot. We had a lot of shared music and stuff. Her music comes on all the time. Got sap there. And no, I'm talking about Use that there till Garrote, and then I'm just going to keep it for out of combat. I think that's everything. Sap, dual wield. I got dual wield, so now I need another dagger. Damn it. I guess I could just buy one from the vendor, but usually you want agility on your weapon. So now I've got to go all the way to stupid Undercity again just to buy a crappy dagger. I mean, I guess I could now mail the money away, but that would take an hour. Have the alt buy it. That would take an hour. 2 hours, you know. Oh, thank you. Who was it? Oh, well, too late. And yeah, and the deaths affected me. I went back to D-Town looking for her. I spent 4 years of my life with her, and well, it was like 5 if you count the year that it was like a year and no, it was longer than that. Like 2.5 years we were apart. We were together for 2 years, and then we were apart, and then we were back together again for like another year, and then she just, I won't finish it because it's too depressing. I've talked about it a lot before, but it went badly, and that sucked. Like, that one hurt. I went back to Denver to try to save someone's life, and I failed. And my mother, I told my mother that the other day. She was like, "That's what that was?" She had not seen it from that perspective, and I was like, "Yes, I went back to Denver to try to save my ex. And while I was back there, I picked up all my old habits. It sucked. I do better in the small rural areas, I know now. City's very bad for me. When you have all that direct access to sin, city's bad for me. I can't go to it. I'm so glad I'm not in the city anymore. City kills me. I'm such a goddamn junkie. Like, city kills me. The women, the people, the drugs, the partying, the flop houses, the lifestyle, the drinking, even out in public, drinking, coffee, beer, restaurants. I mean, it's just weird. The whole lifestyle, the people, the partying. They've all got jobs now, but I mean, I never had that constraint. I mean, I had that constraint, but for a long time I did. But I mean, I didn't have not the last 10 years, not really.
Be quick about it.
I mean, yeah, really, but I mean, I worked a lot, but I mean, I'm talking about like, I had freedom though, more freedom in the last 10 years than I did my whole life. Now I'm totally free, which is awesome.
Trust no one.
Oh yeah, that's actually something that I might need. Damn it. What's that
I can
gonna
teach you how to
cost?
cook.
Yeah. And then now I need a dagger. Do not seek the treasure. Do not seek the treasure.
Came through and
We
gathered
thought
me
you
up
was
and
a
told me to go home
toad.
and get myself together, and I did. But the next time I saw Ben, I
We
was
thought
visiting him in the
you
county
was
jail. And then
a
I saw him maybe
toad.
once after that, as he was awaiting to get his report date and trying to graduate before he had to go in. And then I didn't see him again until
A long
2023.
time. 2023.
Man, you look good, bro. How you
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah, I'm trying. You know what I mean?
Armed
Yeah,
robbery.
you
What's
working
up?
through the struggles, figuring it out. You know what I'm saying? One step at a time. You know how I go.
That's what's up, man. I'm happy to hear that, man. It's still wild seeing you sometimes.
Man. Imagine looking in the mirror.
That's real. That's real. That's real, man.
Yeah.
You know, you don't look like what you've been through, man. Like, I'm happy that, and I hope that speaks to, you know, that the world and life is treating you well in the moment.
I'm grateful that the Ben I met in 2023 was mostly the same Ben
There it
I met
is.
in 2009. But I don't lose sight of the fact that Ben was essentially kidnapped and tortured physically and psychologically for 10 years, most of his 20s. I lament Ben's potential, but I want to be clear. Potential is not a prerequisite for basic humanity. Regardless of what you think about crime, police, and the justice system, consider whether it makes sense that the United States of America, the richest, most powerful country in the world, has only 5% of the world's population, but 25% of the world's prison population. Is America just that much more of a dangerous place, or something just fundamentally wrong with our society? There are a lot of things wrong, actually, and it starts with the ideology of what we're actually accomplishing by putting people in jail in the first place. Concepts of punishment and wrongdoing vary throughout history and across culture. However, Western civilization has a robust history of
excuse me. It's not the concept. It's not the problem. It's that if there wasn't some psychological deterrent like jail, we would just run slipshod all over everybody. It has nothing to do with the punishment or the jails or the people. Or it has something to do with the prisons. There's too many prisons and too many problems. But like there has to be some deterrent, to crime, and the concept of jail has to be there, whether there's people in it or not. There must be some deterrent.
And public shaming.
It's kind of like nuclear war when we got there. Once we had a nuclear weapon, we were like, don't fuck with us or we'll fucking nuke you. And everybody else was like, don't fuck with us or we'll nuke you. And that's the whole thing about, I wrote a paper about this in college, about nuclear proliferation. It's about if I can't have it, nobody will. And that's not the same as not the same concept. That's nuclear proliferation, but a fair concept behind jail is if you do something bad, you lose your freedom, and it doesn't matter what it is. Technically, we just need the deterrent, or people would just rob each other for a living.
And those who've transgressed against society or authority.
No.
You approve a brutal and illegal act to enforce a political principle, Sam.
Thankfully, this did not last, and new forms of punishment came into being. Kinda. Bray Deschanel did a video on canceling, which I think I've mentioned like multiple times now because it's a really good video, and it brings up this really good point of analysis about French sociologist Michel Foucault. To summarize her summarization of Foucault, there was a time when the public spectacle of punishment and torture was a core aspect of social control. People needed to see the wicked punished for their crimes. I won't call this...
That is the same. That's exactly what I just said.
But I also want to ignore the fact that that dynamic is still relevant today. I maybe argue this is a product of Western ideology and probably Christianity, but that's a hot take that I can't or at least won't substantiate for now.
I have
Either
another
way,
term
at
in
a
shirt.
certain point, the public spectacle and horror of torture began to have diminishing returns.
I don't know
Watching another
horror
human
that well.
suffer the gruesome punishment publically wouldn't instill
I've done
fear.
this before, but
It
I
would
don't remember
instead
it.
instill spite toward the state and sympathy for the punished.
15 or 20 nightsticks could be seen through the gas, flailing at the heads of the marchers. The Negroes cried out as they crowded together for protection, and the whites on the sidelines whooped and cheered.
So eventually, public punishment gave way to private imprisonment. The public could acknowledge that the wicked were being punished, but it didn't have to deal with the visual confirmation of the depravity of what was happening in that punishment, because that punishment was happening behind closed doors. I think this dynamic is incredibly relevant today as 2 million Americans sit in a variety of prisons. The average American has little to no idea of how inhumane and cruel the modern reality of prisons are. While not being drawn and quartered, prisons in America have not been much better than physical torture for the individuals locked away. And there's also emotional and economic torture for the communities and loved ones left behind. Inside prisons, prisoners have to survive extremely substandard living conditions, a lack of security, laughable health care, and constant exploitation.
Going to medical in prison, like it's a joke. Like, I don't know if you can tell, my arm's a little crooked, like right around here.
Yeah.
That's because when I got in a fight in prison, a dude hit me with a pool stick. I blocked it because he was trying to bust me in the head. Broke my arm, but they never set it. They put a cast on it without setting it, so they didn't put it into place for nothing. So they just left it crooked. that is like standard, right?
Ooh.
One of the things that always pounded in my head is how they will use inhumane like tactics as a way of punishment. They put me in this square room with a square block in the center, no bed, nothing, no toilet, and left me in there for 3 days.
Yep.
So
that happened to me one time. The most inhumane thing I think I remember ever happening to me, there was two of them. The one I won't talk about because it was psychologically scarred me. The other one, when I was busted for, oh God, I don't even remember now. Oh, false. It was a false assault charge in District 3. I went to the university and I-25 District 3 cop station. And when they got me there, they locked me in a room, chained me to a wall, and left me in there for 9 hours. And around like the 4th hour, I was like yelling like, I have to piss. I have to piss. I'm going to piss myself. And finally I had to piss on full camera. Just, you know, on the floor. I just pissed on the floor. After, 5 hours, I held it as long as I could, and I was like, I want somebody to come here. I would like to piss, and it just went like that. And finally, I just hauled out, whizzed, and pissed on the floor. And when I got there, the cop was like, oh, you pissed on the floor? And I was like, yes, I've been yelling for 5 hours. I needed to piss, And he was like, all right. And then he just moved me out. And I was like, great. Yeah, this is how Americans should be treated.
Plastic bags through the little slot, so like piss and shit in there and stuff. And so until I finally just caved, I'm like, all right, just do whatever, man. Just do whatever. Get me the fuck out of here. You know what I mean?
And that's like the thing. Like, I've heard stuff like that before, and it's so wild that that's just a thing that's happening in a civilized nation.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Off a drug charge, right? Like that sounds like some medieval shit.
If I had to put a number on it, just within like the overall journey, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I said 8. Yeah, 8 different prisons. 8 different 8 different prisons.
8 different prisons. Why is that necessary? 2 county. Transition. I mean, he caught an 8-year sentence, so each year they brought him to a different prison. Why is that necessary? What's that about? Like, what? Okay, why would we need to do that? Like, at all? Why would we ever need to do that? I don't really follow that. Come on, man. How much money does that cost? Fucking clowns. Yeah, I ran something. Did I? I think I probably will redeem this now. Yeah, run the booster. It's good. Gives me a reason to pay attention.
Places at different times without you even knowing. You wake up and obviously telling you pack up, you going to such and such. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a middle of the night process. So it's like, I was just moved around from place to place until
like luggage.
What goes
they
on
treat them like
weekends?
luggage.
Like, I remember when COVID hit, you were talking about like, yo, people are just dying in here.
The COVID was bad. I'm gonna say this: what goes on that you can't see in order to really understand or to start to understand is the lack of security. You know what I'm saying? Like that is what really goes on.
The lack of security.
Every other problem from that, like every other problem is birthed from that. You know what I'm saying? It stems from that. Like, that one issue is the deep root of basically every awkward situation in prison, every violent situation in prison, every unwarranted situation. Like, it is. You know what I'm saying? You have the lack of empathy from security. When you do have security, you have the whole inmate officer complex. Like, it's actually illegal to be friends. Like, for me to be friends with somebody, like we're human. You get what I'm saying? But like, as an officer, you can't tell a coworker, subordinate, whatever, we're friends. Me and Francois are friends. But that's not termination. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like they want to remove your humanity. You can't have a and they do it like there's that legal thing, and then there's like imagine you made friends with somebody inside, and you wake up the next morning, you get transferred. Like you can't have no like that. Like people call prison slavery. That's exactly how that shit. Go ahead.
Let's take it further than that. Imagine becoming friends with someone genuine. You know, you never met this person in your life. You just happen to come across them in prison or whatever, and you're genuinely friends with this person. And then getting out of prison. And
you're just done.
Coming across a statute that states you can't even hang around this person because.
Yep. Yeah, I had a friend when I was in the madhouse. And he seemed to be interested in being friends for the rest of our lives. And I was like, I don't need a prison buddy. I didn't say this to him, but that's how I fell on that. I was like, and I gave him a computer, you know, like as a friend and stuff, hung out with him for 2 years. We were good friends, played a lot of video games, good friend. But at the end of it, I didn't even say goodbye. I just left. I was like, I'm sorry. I don't want to depress you with a goodbye. I don't want to act like I want to hang around a prison buddy. I'm sorry, but I don't. This is a time of my life that I'm not proud of, and I don't want a prison buddy, you know? And I didn't even say goodbye. And that's an example of how fucked up I am and why I'm not a good role model or any of that stuff. I didn't even say goodbye to that guy. I was just like, peace.
Aggro.
Bye. Ghost. Good friend, but my friend N, really good guy. But, like, I just don't want a prison buddy. I think he of all people would understand. I think he got it in the end, I think. You don't want a prison buddy. He won't want one either. He won't want one either. In like 5 or 10 years, he'll be like, yep, all the people I know, they were good people. And hopefully he'll be happy that he wasn't hanging around with a prison buddy. Because it's like, I don't want a prison buddy, you know? I don't want criminal buddies. Don't want, you know? It's just, my mother raised me better than that. And I'm you know, it just, you know, it was good while we were in jail, you know, or whatever you want to call it. The, you know, the men's dorm. But beyond that, nope. And that's fucked up, you know? That's the sort of situation that the system, that's sort of fucking cold-hearted bullshit the system turns you into. You know? Where you're like, shit, I've been done through this. I've dealt with jail before. I know people, and, you know? And you just don't even have any interest in being friends with anybody like that anymore. I don't. A lot of people think I'm going to stick around.
Aggro.
I was never really like that. They knew it too. Everybody who really truly knew me and loved me, they understood that I wasn't going to stick around. Not long. Maybe with the women. If the circumstances hadn't been such that I lost, like especially the last one, like, you know, I feel like I could have maintained something my whole life with them. But the rest of the people, even my best friends and stuff, I don't think it was going to last. It's unfortunate, but that's actually how my personality is. They knew it. I know it. My friends, they don't like it. My ex, she doesn't like it. We don't talk. They don't like it. They knew it. They all know it. I try to warn them. I stay away from most people. They all knew it. I'm cold like that. I'll just straight walk away. I'm an asshole like that. Everybody knows it. The minute they're chilling with me or whatever, same room, I don't give a fuck. And they know it. Like, I wasn't out there for anybody's company. I went seeking the friendships that I thought were worth keeping, and I kept them, and I still have them. And, you know, but do I talk to them? No. Because I was never really going to stay around, you know? The stream, I'm going to stay around. Because that's my house, my life. I can control that. But other people...
Aggro.
It's difficult. My family's about the most I ever want to even do anymore. I'm like, yep, my family's enough, you know? What happened to us? Like, it's like an entire generation of men... totally just out that door, ghosted, gone, poof, Gone. Down that road, Roadrunner. See ya, bye. Arriba, andale, andale. Poof, down, run like a Speedy Gonzalez. On down that road, bye. You know? Something happened to me like that. You get so cold, mistreated by the fucking system and shit like they're talking about. Motherfucker, like it just turns you cold. You don't really see humans as humans anymore. You see aggressors and people that leave you alone. And you like the people that leave you alone and that still love you. And then everyone else is aggressors trying to harm you. Aggressors and people who are willing to leave you alone, you know. Yep. And it sucks. Like, it's cold and it's hard. Prison will do that. I mean, I didn't stay a long time in prison, thank God. But I stayed a long time in the recidivist life, where they were always after me. It was so stupid. Actually, I mean, there was a long period there where they weren't, where I just had a life, you know. But anytime that I was on the dodge, like anytime I was high, I was on the dodge and they were after me. It was so stupid. And for what? In the name of some drug law? Fuck them. Fuck the police.
The documentary on the 13th Amendment on Netflix gave new life to our understanding of prisons, examining how prisons share so many structural similarities with chattel slavery.
There's a clause, a loophole.
If you have that embedded in the structure, in this constitutional language, then it's there to be used as a tool for whichever purposes one wants to use it.
For those who don't know, the 13th Amendment abolishes slavery except for in the cases of criminals locked in prisons. And after the abolishment of slavery, there was a wave of legal practices in the South that saw black people arrested for any possible offense and forced to work as a part of their sentences. This practice has not changed, as many prisons today have entire factories committed to manufacturing a variety of things for our consumption, such as when prisoners in New York made masks.
Go to old prison industrial complex.
COVID, or to offset costs from the prisons as prisoners and provide labor for a variety of functions in the prison with little to no pay.
The average wage in prison is about 63 cents per hour. And remember, that's the average. So that means there are states where prisoners make considerably less.
In Texas, Georgia, Arkansas, and Alabama, prisoners are not paid for their work at all.
However, and this is going to be a theme going forward, the 13th
Dear God, why?
very much misses a lot of important things.
Dear God, why?
The reality of this problem in some insidious ways. It hyper-focuses
If you're going to take their freedom away, at least let them work.
Prison labor, when overall,
isn't that the whole problem? You won't let them work?
It's really just
you don't want to pay them for their work?
Private and public sectors operate across the board. So there's a section of prison that's always going to be privatized. Like, you got to pay for phones. You know, here in Indiana, I think it's like $2.10 a phone call. You know, you have to pay. You know, there's people who make money off of the food industry, but that's within any public thing. Like, you go to schools, you're going to see that. Anything in the government, you're going to see there's going to be some kind of private relationship. So there's this emphasis on the corporation, and we don't understand the entire state, because it's like, oh, there's these corporations making money. But most prisons are state-run prisons, and prisons are operated at a loss. As in, the more money is paid to uphold prisons than is extracted from it financially. Right. So, like, the state is losing money by paying for prisons. So there's entities who make money around it, but as you actually look at the aggregate of what goes in and what comes out, there's more money lost than there is that, you know, goes in that is made or profited off of.
So what prison does do is it extracts labor from communities that are already marginalized, right? It's a way to take people from their communities and put them into a place where they can either be used for physical labor, or even if they're not, they can use to make profit off of being held there.
Yep.
What it doesn't do is it doesn't.
It's been done like that.
Prisons are for profit, and private profits made off of government-ran prisons all the time. So it's like, when the people private prisons, it's not the flex people think it is.
Make no mistake that all prisons, whether private or state or federal run, operate in a fashion that steals from people directly. Again, as I said earlier, all prisons allow for the extraction of labor from prisoners with a Supreme Court-backed rule that does not require them to be compensated at all. And non-compliance with these jobs doesn't mean you get fired. It means you get written up, which means you may get extra time or greater punishment in the form of being sent to a higher security prison where you'll have less freedoms.
Conspicuous, like all the way down to, you know, the cotton along the roads, like to the prison, like it's so conspicuous. Like it's obvious, you know what I'm saying? Like you wake up on a bus because you just rode for 4 hours through Georgia, from North Georgia to South Georgia, and then you know you wake up and the first thing you see is a whole bunch of trees and woods, and right through the horizon of the sunshine, you're like, what is that? And is that cotton? like it's cotton. You feel like that's some good old Georgia. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you made it. And the Georgia prison system, we have something that's called a detail, which is essentially a job, a prison job, the detail. You get the detail, and it's whatever it is, you know, whether it be laundry, maintenance, working in the kitchen, things of that nature. It's just your job in the prison. Where Georgia prisons don't pay for these details. You know what I'm saying? So essentially, it is free labor geared to the cause of repaying your debt to society.
I like him.
We're gonna chop it up to that. The slavery is so blatant once you understand the system. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, go to work, and if you don't go to work, you're gonna get written up. And if you get written up, you become subjected to being in places that are worse than where you are now, fighting for your life in places where there are less security than where you are now. And we know this. Right. As a matter of fact, they employ it. You know what I'm saying? Like officers employ. All right, you know that. You know another write-up, and you're gonna be closed security, or you're gonna be level 5 down, or you're gonna be XYZ. You know you can't hang out there with such and such and such and such at the XYZ prison. Like, why would you? It's not even about the fact of who's there inmate-wise. It's about the fact that you would weaponize the fact that your coworkers elsewhere care so less that that's your threat for me.
There's also an unseen cost for maintaining the type of building and just the land that I'm seeing over in the distance. The grass over here is always cut. The buildings are in disarray, but they're not crumbling. This is paid for by taxpayers. This is paid for by federal budgets, but it's also paid for by the inmates and their families, to the tune of $80 billion. $80 billion in federal funding, taxpayer money, and money straight from prisoners and the prisoners' families. $80 billion that was spent on all the things the Kerner Commission told us these communities needed way back in 1968. I'm surely some of you know in Atlanta we're still dealing with the YSL RICO case for Young Thug and Lil Durk. I don't know which one of these Negroes has got arrested, but they talk about Cleveland Avenue. Cleveland Avenue is literally like 5 minutes south from this prison. So consider the community that's being victimized, allegedly victimized by that gang, what that community could do with just $1 billion, let alone 80 billion that we're using to keep buildings like this open. And by the way, that's just the prisons, that's not the police, which is another.
That's a very good point.
And it's not just
misappropriation.
Chunks of the cost to fund prisons come directly from the actual community.
Why not actually fix the community? Why not just get those men jobs and dump all that money into making sure that no matter what, you can have a job. Come home at night. You don't have to feel like a fucking loser in the ghetto, because no matter what, you can go make like, 36 grand a year as a construction person doing building houses and hotels for people like you to live in or whatever. It's a bad system. It's designed around letting them sit there, and I don't know about that either. It's like, I don't know what the solution is to all this. I wish I did.
University of Villanova found that mass incarceration has increased poverty in states by 20%. This is because when people, most often men, go to jail, they become an indirect burden on the taxpayer who pays for the prison, but they also become a direct burden on their family who pays money on commissary, pays for phone calls, as well as other resources. But it's bigger than that, because these prisoners are also extracted from their local communities and economies. They can't contribute to their families financially. They don't pay into taxes that fund schools or social services, etc. And recognize that while most prisoners may not be in a private prison, the companies that run bail systems, prison phone systems, commissary systems, etc., most definitely are private and contract with the state and federal government to provide those services, which are only partially paid for by taxpayers and must be mostly covered by families of prisoners. And of course, those families are much more likely to be in poverty, meaning they're giving up the little that they have to take care of a person in prison if they can do it at all. And that's just the prison part of prison. That doesn't even get into large costs that are incurred for restitution and bail that many of these families have to eventually pay the bill. Young men like Ben who are extracted from community and their skills and their abilities and their value to that community can no longer serve that community while they're locked inside. It only at best serves the institution.
Yeah, all it does is serve the institution. I want them back working for the community. They should be picking up trash. They should be, like, doing the chain gang labor. They should be doing, like, work. And they shouldn't be sitting in a cell all day, getting fat and shanking each other. And their work goes towards the community to make sure that men have jobs. Well, not men, but people have jobs no matter what. And when they come home at night from a solid day's work after they're out of the system, they have made their $200 and they can pay for a motel room and a meal and a shower, and they can go back to work the next day, and they're not cast in jail because they're a drug addict or you know, pariah or cast out of the society. No matter what, they can function and get their way out of it with the proper support. The prison systems are good for rape and murder and child molestation. Maybe some more like severe forms of scamming and harm, maybe stabbing people, that sort of stuff, right? Like keep the hardcore criminals in the prisons. I think that's where they belong, and force that punishment to be they don't get to do anything at all. They just sit there, stare at a wall all day. That's what the punishment for murder should be. Stare at a wall all day for the rest of your fucking life. That's a good punishment for murder. Stare at a fucking wall all day for the rest of your fucking life. You know? And, you know, so then, you know, I don't know. And so I'm not saying, like, just give the murderers a job and it fixes it. I'm saying that, like, would they have, if they weren't poor, would they have resorted to murder? If they would have, put them in jail, make them stare at a wall all day until the day they die. If they're out there capping some dude on the corner because of gang issues, because they're poor and they have no money where they come from, I say get them off the streets, get them a job, and make sure that their teeth and their dental and their eyes are taken care of, and they have shelter that doesn't cost $2,000 a month, and you know, and if they need a doctor, they can go see a doctor, and make sure that the weakest links of our society are taken care of, because without that, we don't have anything at all. And then at that point, like, I don't know how you, like, systemic problems, I don't know how to solve them. It's not as easy as what I'm proposing, but it's a start. Like, he's got it. He's got the solution there. $80 billion goes towards just maintaining those crappy prison industrial complex systems. Why not take the $80 billion and make sure that all those young men have jobs, they have haircuts, they have hygiene, they have training and school if they want it. They have all the things that they need to be productive members of the American society. And that's what the American dream was to me. I know it's freedom and pursuit of happiness, but honestly, to me, it's like making sure that everybody in the society has the same chance as everybody else to live through this video game that is being an American, you know? And, like, now I look at it like, yeah, imprison the psychos who kill people, yeah. And the rapists and the child molesters and the Bernie Madoffs of the world, you know. Put them in prison. But I don't know about, like, systemic gang violence in the ghettos where there's no money to be had at all. And the rent's so damn high that we don't know where we're going to get it from. And, you know, boosting is normal and drug addiction is normal, all that stuff. Why spend all that money on prisons? Take that money out of prisons and put it towards social change, social reform, build back better, and education.
Aggro.
Wish I had a wrote. Oh, damn it.
housing. And while Ben is inside,
HUD,
it's us.
like HUD is an institution that is in decay, run by jackasses like fucking what's his name who ran it, Ben Carson, run into the ground. So of course they're all out stabbing each other over heroin and rent, because like the HUD is fucked. They're out there, like, you guys let the rent get out of control. It killed the country. That money you spent on prisons, I want to see it spent on HUD. If they had a home and they weren't starving and they had school to go to each day, or a job that was like government funded and founded, and the job doesn't care what your past is. They just make sure that you can fucking work if you need to get out of your dire straits, rather than getting down on the fucking corner again. You know what I'm saying? Get off the fucking corner. Get off the fucking corner. Get out of the jail cells and off the fucking corner and back to fucking work in this country. Like this, you know, like, you know, if you're disabled, you're disabled, but that's a lot different from being like fucking, you know, just fresh out of the system, so you can't get a job, so you can't get a house because you don't have an address, can't get an address because you can't get a job, and that bullshit systemic fucking ping pong bouncing off the fucking wall that never goes anywhere. It's like that thing from Men in Black 1. It just bounces off the fucking wall, never reaching a fucking answer. Or like a resolution. It's like the pain of the fucking ping pong ball that is a fucking system bouncing around an endless room with, like, you know, perpetual motion. It's disgusting. It's the revolving door of the fucking system. It's so goddamn stupid. Get them out of that situation. Empower them. And by them, I mean anybody who breaks the law. I'm not talking about racial lines. Talk about people who are willing to break the law to survive. Get them a job. We have the money. We have the support and the resources and the dreams. Fund NASA with prison labor and get us to the stars and offer them to, you know, offer them spacer lives. I think they voluntarily take it. We have to, you know, we have to do something towards building their future, not just crippling their fucking present. You know, it has nothing to do with staring at a yeah, murderers should stare at a wall for the rest of their lives. But I don't know about drug addicts and gang members and shit like that, prostitutes, or like, you know, all the street crime level stuff. People trying to make money to get by, all that stuff that they end up in prison for, gang banging and fucking gun charges and drug charges and prostitution, shit like that. All that stuff must be resolved. We must make it better for them where they don't need to do that sort of stuff. It is on us.
It's his family that pays for him
It's
to
not
be
on them.
there, to be of use to that institution.
Like it's an institution that is in decay, like marriage. It's essentially like a financial contract with slavery. Essentially, it's not good. It's like, you know, they go and they sit in that box and they either work or they don't work, but either way they sit in that box, and I don't really know how sitting in a box, it works for murder and rape and child molestation shit, Bernie Madoff MLM and shit like that, but it doesn't really work for the fucking people at the ground level that are just trying to survive and get by. Yeah. You ever seen Detroit? You ever actually seen Detroit?
They call it him paying his debt to society. The 13th Amendment uses a lot of talk about prisons as new age slavery.
After the collapse of slavery, a new system was born, convict leasing.
Yeah, poverty.
Which was a new form of slavery.
Poverty, yeah.
And here we are,
Yep.
decades after the collapse of the old Jim Crow.
And the system.
And a new system has been born again in America. A system of mass incarceration that once again strips millions.
Don't like it? Just imprison it.
Overwhelmingly poor.
Everybody's a jail peasant.
Of the very rights supposedly won
Like
by
Hitler.
the civil rights movement.
Exactly like Hitler. That's where they got that shit from. Hitler was their fucking main.
I kind of find it
main
hard
influence.
to take that imagery to heart. And that's because despite the fact that the percentage of black people in jail is almost triple the amount of black Americans, that black people are 5 times more likely to be arrested.
Gotta go pee, guys. I'll be right back.
The raw reality of America's prison population is that there are just as many, if not more, white people incarcerated as black people. In state prisons, white people make up 32% compared to 34% of black people. white people make up 49% of people in county jails and 57% of people in federal prisons. State prisons do make up a little more than 50% of the prison population, so that does mean that black men still barely outnumber white men in prison. But the reality is that America's total prison population is almost half full with white people, specifically white men. It kind of hurts the analogy of prisons as neo-slavery, because I don't know a lot about white slaves at that period of time.
You know, talking about chattel slavery in the United States and transatlantic slave trade was, you know, I mean, at the beginning it was white indentured servants, but overall it was like 100% black African people was slaves, right? Like once it got to scale, you know, there was natives and stuff, but once it got to scale, it was just us, you know. so we talking about prison, it's just like what usually people are doing is looking at disproportionate rates, right? So for instance, in Indiana, like black people only make up 9% of the state, but we make.
So what he said is actually kind of monumental. It's a African American man with some sympathy for the white community who are in prisons. And it's gotten so flip side. We poisoned the well so badly that there's white bodies down there. There's white bodies down there. The well we poisoned, we thought we were just going to put all the black people in jail or whatever. I don't know what their fucking goal with was making drugs illegal and all that stupid shit, right? Prostitution and all that. But I do know that, like, now there's white bodies down there. And it's funny to watch a black activist have some sympathy. He's almost a Black Panther in some ways, in my estimation. Really wonderful man, with some more sympathy for my race as a white person than I have, because yeah, half those jails are filled. Like the jails are half filled with white people too, like so it's like kind of crazy, you know. It's like such a different system that we built. It's like a twisted, I don't know, like a twisted leopard, and the spots are like rainbow. Because it's like, you know, and it doesn't look natural. It's a weird thing we twisted into reality.
34% of prisons, right?
And then you see this ultimate irony in 2023 when a black activist evinces his sympathy for white people that are in prison industrial complex. And that's how sick and sad like the white dominant power system got with the fucking war on drugs in the prison industrial complex. That's how sick we got that. Yeah, that we poisoned the well so much that there's white bodies down there. Half the bodies down there are white. The entire well is poisoned. It's not even like the racial machine that I think they originally built it to be anymore. Now it's just killing everybody.
The disproportionality is like ridiculous. But 59%, I think, are still just white folks. Coming back to surplus labor, you have a lot of white
Sounds
folks.
Sounds about right.
The capital is no interest in them either. You know, as you continue to automate and do that and send jobs elsewhere.
Yeah, we got white friends, black friends in jail. I never truck with any goddamn racism. I don't have that fucking luxury. You know what I'm saying?
Need these people to work at the meat factory that you once did.
Must be nice.
You don't need them to do certain jobs.
I don't have that fucking luxury to get my fucking ass beat by a bunch of people I know.
So of course,
my own mother,
have,
for one.
You know, folks who end up committing crime or getting on drugs or whatever.
It's funny because, like, the white supremacist talking point is that black people make up 13% of the population and 50% of the crime. And the irony of this talking point is that not only is it not supported by the actual data, but that the data shows that white non-Hispanic people make up around 60% of the population and account for 70% of crime arrests. And white men are 50% of the white population, but men as a whole are 93% of the prison population, and 81% of arrests are for violent crime. And suddenly you realize that the only reason there aren't much larger percentages of white people in jail is due to structural racism. In fact, over the last 20 years, the amount of black people in jail has significantly reduced, while white folks have remained the same.
I
wow.
think there's a natural feeling to believe
I never heard that before.
Something cannot be operating so unjustly in plain sight. To believe, like, for the system to be as
yeah, see, like these people are like me. They're against the system. They're not against the white people. They're against the system. I'm not against anybody except the system. You know what I'm saying?
As it is, it's something you need a magnifying glass to parse out.
They don't see this in terms of like even their own community. They see it as like a systemic wrong. that has affected everybody, and I mean that is the case. Yeah. Lost soul. Yeah, but what if you die? I guess I could help them. Fuck it. Isn't that one of the ones? Oh, no, I don't need these anymore. I need that thing to respawn that they just pulled, I think, or something. I don't know. Like, what do I need here? What is it? It's like, they want me to... Or no, I guess I got it. I got what I wanted here? Oh, yeah, I get it. I guess I did. Alright. Well, sweet. Let's get the fuck out.
Aggro.
Oh, no. No, don't frost me. I just sprinted. Okay, auto walk in that direction. I don't care how long or into what, because it's not hardcore, so who cares if I aggro anything? Oh, wait, no, I guess I have other things I do have to do here. Shit. Fuck, I have like 2 more name mobs to do. Oh, well, there he is, Go get him. No. Hey, you. Can I invite you? Invite. Please, please. Yes. You need this one over there. I was gonna share this one with you, but okay, you wanna fight, huh? Alright. People are so antisocial now that they don't want connections that they can't prove that they need or something. It's something psychological. Nobody wants to even stay in the party anymore, because then it's like there's assumption that there's something deeper there if you stay in the party. Like maybe you should be friends or something. And we can't have that in the modern internet age. So you dish the party ASAP. I know I do it. This guy dishes the party ASAP. Damn it. No, no. Where is the other one he's going to spawn? I'll help him, I guess. I don't know why he left the party. He's fucking dumb.
It's something you gotta check the stats. Nah, this was the day I realized, like, oh shit, what it really is was I had cases back to back. So I have my files, all my clients I'm gonna arraign back to back, same judge, same prosecutor.
She's a DA, fuck yeah, or a PD. I mean, public defender.
And he's accused of having like a blunt. They asked for thousands of dollars bail on him. Immediately after, I represent a white guy found with a bag of drugs, obviously a dealer. You know, consent to release. Didn't even add consent. And that's always listen to me, that has always been the case for my white clients. When I represent a white person, I might as well close my ears and arraignments, because I'm not gonna have to make a case.
And this reality presents a complex challenge to prison abolition and criminal justice reform movements. I generally don't know if engaging more with the overwhelming whiteness of our prisons would give more fuel to the fire of abolition and criminal justice reform, or less. I don't want to engage in any oppression Olympic stuff, but I have done social work in rural areas, and for anyone who has tried to do any type of social good in Trump towns, you'll find a unique challenge where these folks
you'll find a unique challenge
interests for the sake of upholding a system of inequality that they don't fully benefit from.
I had breast cancer last year, so I was very happy to have my insurance. I didn't realize that the government was subsidizing my health insurance.
One of Bobby's complaints is that it has been linked to a president she strongly dislikes.
And I absolutely detest hearing the words Obamacare. Detest it.
Racial resentment and poor political education makes them liabilities.
Yeah, you detest it till you don't have it anymore.
themselves as their own governments cut their services and their own favorite corporations.
Show me on the doll where Obamacare touched you as a child. Oh, wait, back then it was called Romney Care. Remember how it's a Republican push? Remember how that's a Republican idea? Obamacare? Republicans came up with that one, remember? Mitt Romney. It's called Romney Care, remember? Oh, yeah. Oh, man, you just really can't handle a black man pitching healthcare, I guess. Is that the takeaway here? Because that's how it looks. That's how it fucking looks. That might not be the case, but that's how it fucking looks. It looks like you can't support a black man pushing universal healthcare. It has to be Romney if you have that. And that's how it looks. Now, I'm not saying you have that bias in your heart. That's just how it looks to the outsider. I'm sorry, but that's how it does look. That's how it's always looked. Oh, you don't like Obamacare, huh? It's because he's black, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Because, well, Obamacare was a direct ripoff of Romney Care. And it was originally a Republican idea. I don't like giving him credit for it. Socialism. But, I mean, the socialism in this country came from the Republicans, not the Democrats. It's true.
And billionaires disinvest from their
The assault weapons ban, that came from George Bush, not Obama. Or was that Clinton? I can't remember. Like one of them. I can't remember. The assault weapons ban was Bush.
Exploit them directly. Their sons fill prisons and struggle with addiction while their local economies die and health crises ravage their communities.
Yep.
All while they rally behind the anti-woke virus or whatever the fuck Ron DeSantis calls it.
Whoa. You know where else we've heard this before? We've heard this behavior somewhere else before, too. We've seen this behavior before. No. Woke.
Focus more on ending critical race theory and keeping trans women out of women's bathrooms, and the fact that their communities are literally rotting and nobody seems to care. White America as a whole should have a vested self-interest in dismantling the prison industrial complex.
White America.
More than people of color. And whenever we speak of the problem of American prisons, we should see a white face for every black face. But we don't do it.
White folks, a lot of times in these conversations become collateral damage as if the whole prison is black and brown.
My God, and it's a black convict saying it. White folks get marginalized by the white prison industrial complex, the worst. Isn't that kind of that's the humanity that I know and hate. There you go. You ask me why I left humanity. There you go. Turns out that the worst victim of the prison industrial complex is actually white people. A statistic taught to me by a black person, which I believe it's true. I think it sounds true. I think it's right. I think 50% of the people in jails are probably white. And it's kind of funny. It's like the system that you built, is killing your own.
And it's just not true. Like poverty, if we care, and my thing is,
poverty is not racist. Poverty is not racist. It'll affect anybody.
Thank you for doing what is necessary, but the death guards of Tirisfal will remember your name.
Poverty makes no distinction.
Talk to them. But I'm just saying, like, it's just if we care about poverty, then we need to care about poverty. You can't like section it off, right? If you care about prisons, you need to care about prisons. You can't section it off. Right. So yeah, it's a black issue because we are disproportionately impacted by it, but it's a problem.
But it's a problem. Period.
Cages like that, if people are in poverty when there's all this wealth created, if you claim to be any kind of leftist, which this channel speaks to, then that's a problem regardless. But it also on the flip side isn't a reason to say race doesn't matter, right? Or because like you said, it needs the black face, right? To justify everything else. Yeah. You know, it needs to be seen as a problem that's only us, so it can do it to everyone. It needs that front, you know, to do the rest of the stuff.
The moderate and liberal point of view on these problems inherently believes that these systems work, and that these problems that I'm talking about within the system only require tweaks. They would be perfectly fine with the 2 million plus prisoners being behind bars as long as they were proportional to the normal population, even if that means increasing the white population of prison.
Increasing the white population of prisons.
Is that the awful outcomes of the prison industrial complex, from the police precinct to the prison yard, those problems are not bugs or glitches, they're features of this system. This system working exactly as it's designed.
Yeah.
I want to end on like talking about Pendleton.
Yeah.
And talking around, just getting back to that counterinsurgency, revolutionary aspect, what that story and documentary was meant to do, and why it's important for people to like not just know that specific thing, but understand how that thing exists within like the greater context of the problem.
1985. And my co-defendant John Cole, we were supposed to be, which was on the lockup unit at that time, going to a CAB hearing, and there was a disturbance on the lockup unit, and we noticed was the smell of mace.
Oh,
and
no.
then that I had already
Bear
served
mace.
time on the lockup unit, I knew what that meant, especially when the curtain was pulled. I knew that there was some form of terrorism going on.
Uh-oh.
There was an active approach inside prisons started by the FBI to identify, you know, people who were potentially insurgent. February 1st, 1985, there was an uprising at Pendleton Correctional Facility, what at the time was known as Indiana Reformatory, and the uprising was started by the prison guards. So there was a inmate by the name of Lincoln Love, aka Lokmar.
Oh my!
Maximum restraint unit on that day.
Oh my God!
Worked that unit. The guard who ran that unit wasn't there. It had been searched, and they targeted this one particular inmate, Lincoln Love, who had been an organizer inside the prison, who was a jailhouse lawyer, who had gotten, you know, tens of people out of prison.
Wow.
Who, always looked out and was organizing people within the prison, which is what they had been doing prior to this day.
Yeah. Jail activism.
Funny.
Jesus.
First you hate them, and you get used to them. Enough time passes.
You like them.
You get so you depend on them.
Yep. Oh, I have to go put all that stuff away. Damn it. I was going to warp out.
In her book, Golden Gulag, geographer Ruth Wilson Gilmore presents what I think is the most compelling explanation of the core of why our prison system is so fundamentally awful. And I'm resisting saying broken, because when you start to critique what the system actually does and how it fits into the overall scope of capitalism, you recognize that it's not broken, it's actually a well-oiled machine. She did a historical analysis on the state of California, which still has one of the highest prison populations per capita in the country, and she concluded that looking at the problem of prisons and jails just as an exploitative element of slave labor was missing the point. The truth is that economically, prisons are not all that profitable and haven't been pursuing profit pretty much this entire time. The reality from her perspective is that prisons represent a useful and versatile tool to manage capitalism's ongoing challenges of excess labor, land, and resources, and does it in a way that provides multiple benefits to the system as a whole, including population control and galvanizing political ideologies for or against certain populations, and to a lesser extent, providing some profit that can be made off of the labor of prisoners. The short version is that after industrialization and going into the 1970s, America developed an excess labor problem and solved that problem with crime and prisons. In the 70s, we begin to see the slow but quickly accelerating erosion of American manufacturing industry. We begin to truly enter late-stage capitalism in the West, as America, once a producer of goods, had finally shifted so much wealth and power to capitalists that the capitalists were able to create situations where they could utilize cheap labor in developing nations, cutting millions of Americans out of the capitalist equation, aka they took her jobs. When I say they, I don't mean immigrants. I mean corporations that shipped those jobs to countries that had populations that didn't even have to immigrate to this country to take the job in the first place. Capitalism always requires surplus labor with which to control the labor market and keep wages down, but too much surplus labor, especially with traditionally marginalized groups, that requires some modifications or things start to get dicey. To address that diciness and turn a profit, Gilmore argues that in California, prisons were sold as economic engines for small towns. It almost sounded like people were pitching amusement parks or casinos.
Well, sir, there's nothing on earth like a genuine bona fide electrified six-car
monorail.
These towns would be promised jobs and investment.
Telling of your
There was
successful
also the added
forays
benefit
into
of
the
having
Agamemnon
taxable
mills,
land
the
ownership
forsaken
in state
need
and
of your
counties
talents
where the
once
prisons
again.
would be built. The catch is,
The
whatever
Agamemnon
economic
Mills
value
area has become
that
a
was to be
foothold for the
made
scourge.
had to come from.
Their strongest point is the Agamemnon family crypt, where their local military leader, a skeleton named Captain Dargol, has headquartered. With necromancy, he has raised the ancestors of the Agamans and plans to use them against us. This cannot pass, and you must stop it. Travel to the Agamand family crypt and defeat the raised Agamand ancestors, and bring me the skull of Captain Dargol.
Prisons would set the ground for perverse social and political policies that would explode California's prison population well before the '94 crime bill.
Opposition to prison development was more easily managed by pro-prison forces. Aided by the CDCs, the California Department of Corrections, persuasive prospectuses promising jobs and other amenities. Those that were eventually successful in having prisons sited in their vicinity had well-organized delegations with few objections to or demands on the CDC's proposal. They also had large landlords willing to sell nearby surplus acres that the town could incorporate in order to reap the imagined harvest of state subventions, sales tax, and other incomes.
So this looks like a conspiracy, but I hesitate to call it that. While there have been several very real conspiracies against black people in this country, such as the Tuskegee experiment or COINTELPRO, but this seems more like natural responses to capitalism that they just kind of figured out in the process. The racism creates the social conditions create crime, and somebody sees that and says, hey, we can profit off that crime, not just through building prisons and making money off prisoners, but also doing a little population control, because these criminals, they're not just criminals, they're dangerous potential revolutionaries. That may seem like a reach if you don't know the history of how many gangs were formed and even utilized by revolutionary actors throughout history, not just in America, but worldwide. The documentary, The Bastards of the Party, is an unsung classic in that genre. Likely lesser known because of its more radical pro-black vibes.
You've got the
opposed to
hang of it.
sensational and
I can't
exploitative
teach you
nature
anymore.
of most street gang documentaries. It first illustrates how the loss of skilled labor